Hi, folks. Robert Haddo here today from Full Spectrum Rehab. Just want to talk to you about scapular setting exercises. This is a question I get asked a lot about, both in rehab and in training, whether or not you should set your scapula. And that's one of those exercises that, in my opinion, kind of needs to just go away, kind of needs to die. It's not that it's a terrible exercise. In my opinion, there really aren't any bad exercises. If they contribute to your goal in a way that's safe, in a way that doesn't cause repetitive micro trauma to end up creating an insidious onset injury, or macro trauma creating a sudden failure, then they're a good exercise. There might be better ones, but these ones aren't necessarily bad. Scapular setting, if you have a hypermobile scapula, theoretically, if you had a scapula that had maybe been reattached surgically, sure, work on setting it. But I've never ever seen or heard of that. Scapular setting exercises are dysfunctional. They detrain your functional movement through your shoulder. And I know functional movement is a buzzword right now in our field. In training and rehab, we have functional movement and functional conditioning and functional training and functional everything. We have to understand what function is. Function means it needs to be representative of what you need in your day-to-day life. That's it. That's all. And so if I have a shoulder complex, I'm leaving out the clavicle, but if I have a shoulder complex, so a left scapula, a left humerus, and I want movement through that complex, and that scapula is essentially floating on the rib cage, and that humerus is articulating with it. If I want to reach and move, I want movement both ways. The movement of the scapula helps dictate where the ray of the arm can reach. If we have centration of the joint on the ball and socket, and that glenoid cavity, so we have centration of that ball and socket joint, we reduce stress through the ball and socket joint. If we force ourselves to do our exercises with a set scapula, or we force movement from the ball and socket joint, we can't do anything but cause extra trauma there. There are exercises, there are monoarthroidal or single joint exercises that are beneficial for the shoulder. Rotator cuff exercises, for example, tend to fall in this category. But we always want to move past that. We don't want to stick with monoarthroidal exercises in rehab or in training. We want to move past that and then integrate the rest of the kinetic chain. Your arm is a kinetic chain articulating between your hand and your thoracic spine or your rib cage, depending on how we're anchoring. And so we want movement of that scapula. We want integration of that scapula. If we're making the whole thing static, the scapula is set. If we're using the whole thing dynamically, the scapula should be incorporated dynamically. I don't see any reason that we should leave our training at set the scapula, move the humerus. It just seems like a recipe for disaster. Thank you.